Welcome to my Love Sober podcast, Inspiration for Alcohol-Free Living. I'm your host, Chris Hartl, certified This Naked Mind coach with any grace and a flight attendant with a big German airline. In this podcast, I would love to explore with you the role of alcohol in our lives and culture without rules, pain or judgment. I would love to inspire, motivate and support you on your journey into an alcohol-free life, listening to real stories from all over the world. I would love to talk to people in German, English and Spanish, and if you would like to be part of this mission, please send me an email to chris@lovesober.de. But now let's start, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
That's, I'd wake up in the middle of the night with my heart racing because the alcohol burned off, but the stimulants, dopamine and serotonin that the body released to counter the alcohol would wake me up, and the anxiety was terrible. It was just, and a lot of things happened, throughout that drinking career till I got to the point where I was drinking every day. And when I was drinking every day, I mean, that was the only thing that mattered.
Hello, I'm so happy to be today with Jim Shovlin. Jim is one of my coaching colleagues from the This Naked Mind Institute, and he's now in Florida, and I'm so happy to have him here on my podcast today. Hello, Jim.
Hello, Chris. I am so happy that you asked me to do this podcast. It was very spontaneous, but I think it's great. I finally get to speak to you, almost in person.
Yes, so. I think we met a lot of times in Facebook. And yesterday when I saw that you were online, I said, okay, I will ask him, and maybe he has got some time. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, retired people have a lot of time. It's just how they fill up their lot of time. And so I'm down in Florida. I towed my boat down from the Syracuse Oneida, New York area, which is about 250 miles north of New York City. Took 2 days, 14 hours of driving. 14 hours a day driving 1,400 miles. But now I'm down here enjoying the full sun, beautiful weather. Oh, it's glorious. And so when you asked me to be on this is perfect because I can't work on this boat all day, and stopping to speak to you for a while is a perfect opportunity to take a break.
Oh, so nice to talk to you. And I listened already to your story when you were talking to Annie Grace. And I really loved your story. And that's why I wanted to give it to the German audience, the possibility to listen to your story.
So, I'd be glad to share it. All right. My drinking started off, sort of the same as most people I know. In my generation, we would be given a little bit of wine or a little bit of beer, in my case, beer, when we were young. I was probably 8 or 9 or 10. I don't even know exactly. But I had 2 brothers and a sister, and my dad would take a can of beer and split it 4 ways. So you only got 3 ounces, but you felt like a big kid because you got to drink the alcohol with the parents that were all doing it. And you'd think, okay, when I get big, I get to do what they're doing. And then by the time you were 16, maybe they'd give you 1 beer. And, then we went along, and it was, you'd kind of dream that, when I finally get to adulthood, 18 years old, I can have my own. So, in high school, we, of course, would sneak drink like most of the world or most of America. All of the guys on the football team and baseball team and, just all of my friends wouldn't drink at all during the week, but we'd have a couple of beers on the weekend, going to parties and dances. And it was more or less commonplace. It seemed like everybody I know drank alcohol. When I got into college, it changed a lot. I belonged to a fraternity, and the fraternity, we'd have like Greek weeks, and part of it, we'd all get together and we'd have beer races. They'd give you 2 mugs, and you drink one down, and there'd be 4 guys in a row. You drink it, the next guy, and you go down to the end, and then you start over.
Oh,
and,
God.
you know, after 2 or 3 of those, you were usually pretty drunk. You'd go out, you'd get sick so you could keep doing it, which built a tolerance for later on in life. When I graduated college, I'm a pharmacist. I've been a pharmacist for 45 years. When I graduated and I went to work, you know, my drinking probably decreased because I had patient care and my professional career to kind of pay attention to. I would just drink on the weekends. But living in New York City, the bars don't close till 4:00 in the morning. So we'd have plenty of time to go out. It also seemed like every corner had a bar. And so fast forward, when I got my pharmacy license, I worked in New York City Health and Hospitals, in a hospital in the Bronx. And I also worked in a pharmacy a couple of blocks from where I lived in Brooklyn. I went to St. John's University and graduated there. That's in Queens. So I stayed local, or stayed in New York City throughout my college days. So when I was working, again, I didn't have time to drink. I worked in the city hospital system for quite a while. And then eventually by 1979, I moved to the Syracuse, New York area, where I'm down the street from now. And I started to work in a Syracuse VA hospital. And, you know, my drinking never really increased. I just drank on the weekends. And I worked at the VA for a while. And eventually I took a chief of pharmacy job up in Maine. When I was up in Maine, I didn't have a license to kind of moonlight in drugstores. And that's really when I found out what my greatest calling, which is to work in community pharmacy. But when I lived up in Maine, I lived right next to New Hampshire. And New Hampshire, there's no tax on alcohol and the prices are cheap. And so that's when I started to drink bourbon and scotch along with the beer. Again, still just on weekends. And we were only in Maine for about a year. And then I ended up buying a community pharmacy, and I ran my community pharmacy for 32 years. And again, drinking was, I always looked at it like, when I was a kid, there was no alcohol use disorder. That wasn't even a term. But you were either an alcoholic or you were okay. You were a normal drinker. Well, I was a normal drinker. I only drank on the weekends. And as my pharmacy grew and as my pharmacy got busier and I hired a part-time pharmacist, then I had more time and I also probably drank more. And eventually, probably 8 years, but probably when I was about 49 or 50, I hired a full-time pharmacist along with the part-time pharmacist. And that's when the real trouble started. Because now I had no professional responsibilities. I wasn't taking care of patients, healthcare. My professional responsibilities were reduced to administrative. And then I had plenty of time. And that's when it really took off. So probably for the first 40 years, I looked at it as I'm perfectly normal. But we all know alcohol is an addictive drug, addictive to all humans. And that's when my drinking career took off, when my professional responsibilities waned. And it got really bad.
And you said you were 50, no? When you realized?
I was about 50, maybe older than that, maybe 52, 53, before what I would consider, or even 55, before I consider where I actually lost control and started drinking 7 days a week, the equivalent of a bottle and a half to 2 bottles of wine, or the equivalent of that with beer and hard liquor. And it got to the point where when I'd wake up in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, My heart would be racing. I couldn't suck my tongue off the roof of my mouth because I was so dehydrated. And the only thing that would put me back to sleep, at least if I didn't have to work professionally the next day,
Yes.
would be 2 or 3 shots or a big glass of wine. And then I'd fall back to sleep for a couple of hours, but it was that pass out, wake up exhausted.
But did this happen every night, Jim, with you? that you woke up most of the nights?
Most nights, yeah. Well, the way alcohol works, alcohol burns.
Yeah, we know. Yes,
alcohol burns off first. You wake up in the middle of the night. Alcohol also. A lot of people think that, most people, pass or die, have problems with liver disease, but that's not really the case. More people have trouble with cardiac, heart, blood pressure than they do with liver disease. Yes. And that's, I'd wake up in the middle of the night with my heart racing because the alcohol burned off, but the stimulants, dopamine and serotonin that the body released to counter the alcohol would wake me up, and the anxiety was terrible.
Terrible.
It was just, and a lot of things happened, throughout that drinking career till I got to the point where I was drinking every day. And when I was drinking every day, I mean, that was the only thing that mattered. I ended up getting separated, getting divorced. That was probably 10 years ago. And drinking seemed to be the only thing that I did, because all I had to do was the administrative end of the pharmacy. And it was probably around 2015 when, my father passed in 2015. And I started thinking, I got to quit, or I got to cut down. And I tried to moderate. We already know moderation doesn't work.
No.
That's like, all right, if you were a heroin addict and you quit doing heroin, would you want to have like heroin Tuesday? Just sometimes. So moderation didn't work. And then after my youngest grandchild was born in March of 2016, I really got serious that I have to cut down. I still thought moderation was in the picture. Mm-hmm. So I started doing quit lit books, and I started originally with Alan Carr's How to Quit Drinking.
I know, yeah, me too.
Didn't work.
No?
Then not really. It slowed me down a little, but it didn't work. And then I took an online course, Craig Beck's. And first I read Alcohol Lied to Me. And so then I did Craig's course. And I actually, by 2017, this is when this is happening, I actually did really good, where I could go a month or two, but then I'd crash and burn. And then I could go another couple of weeks or another couple of months. And then I would always feel FOMO. I would always feel that fear of missing out, like everybody else could drink normally, but I couldn't do it because I never got it yet. So then I went on and I read Alcohol Explained by William Porter.
Yes.
And that was fantastic. But again, it got me closer, but it never got me all the way done. But I think it was really the combination of Alcohol Lied to Me, Craig Beck's program, William Porter's Alcohol Explained. And then a friend of mine in about, March or April of 2018 recommended that I read This Naked Mind, Danny Grace's book. So I read that, and it still didn't completely stop me, but it kind of worked slow. And, so I probably read it in April or May. And towards the middle or end of June of 2018, I'm having a drink, and I looked at it, and it just didn't make any sense to keep drinking it. So I dumped it out. Okay. And I stopped. And I think it was around the 20th of June, because a week later, I was in Myrtle Beach with a couple of buddies. We went down for a golf vacation.
Yes.
And so I was sober I was alcohol-free for all of about a week when we went down there. So I told them that I was on a medication that I couldn't drink. Okay. Well, I did. I told them I'm taking a medication. I'm sick.
Yeah, yeah.
But I could be your designated driver for the week, which they were all over. They thought that was great. But they didn't know that the reason I was volunteering was because I was trying to quit.
Yes.
And so that's really when I started to get traction. So I went on this vacation, found out that I had a great time being the designated driver for that week, not drinking at all. And that's when my sober journey really started, was June of 2018. And that went really good.
You didn't miss it during this week. You didn't.
No, then I did not know. By then, between the combination of the Quit Lick books and also the communities that went along with, like Alcohol Explained. Alcohol Lied to Me had a community of other people that were in the same place. And then This Naked Mind has a terrific community of people that help each other, answer questions. You can get on their Facebook pages and ask other people, and the other people that are ahead of you in their journey will help you. And so that's really when I started to get traction, was from June of 2018. And I did great. I ran 7 months alcohol free until my cousin called me, who lived in Florida. I'm actually at his brother's house right now. And Flash, his name is Gerard, but we call him Flash. Well, anyway, Gerard called me up, or Flash called me up and told me that his cancer, which he had been fighting for probably 4 or 5 years by then, had returned, and he only had 4 months to live. So I got on a plane, flew down to visit him. I walked into his apartment and he handed me an open beer. All right, so that 7 months went kind of right out the window, because how do you argue with your cousin who just told you that he's got 7 months to live, and he just gave you a beer and said, well, we're going to have a couple of beers like old times? And I didn't have the tools for that. Yes. I didn't have the tools for that. I had no idea what to tell him. And so for probably about a week and a half, we drank a couple of beers until the point where it felt like I was back a couple of 6-packs a day by the time I was done with that trip. And when I flew back up to Oneida, I'm like, what am I doing? This is incredible. So I reread This Naked Mind, but also the first alcohol experiment was January of 2019, because the alcohol experiment book came out in the end of the end of 2018 or beginning in 2019. So I looked at it sort of like Andy wrote the book for me, because that was when I ran into my struggles, and I ran into it after the live alcohol experiment had already started or finished. And so I read that book and reread This Naked Mind and got back to where I was back in the community, because connection is everything. If you try to just white knuckle it and do this by yourself alone, it's usually really difficult.
Difficult, yes.
And since, I don't know, sometime in the middle of February of 2019, I haven't had any, and I have no intention of it. I mean, all of a sudden, what I learned back in 2018 in June, that click of no matter what you do, doesn't matter if you don't drink for a month, or you don't drink for 6 months, or if you don't drink for 6 years. If you ever drink again, alcohol is still poison. There's no new and improved version. There's nothing that's changed. It's still the same thing.
It's still the same, yes.
It put me right back into the same spot. And so, and since I had that revelation, so to speak, in February 2019, it's been amazing. Alcohol free is amazing.
It's the best.
Yeah. So then I probably went 6 months, and then I said, well, I got to try to help some other people. And that's when coaching came up. I mean, how did you find coaching? Probably the same.
Yeah,
the
same.
Wanting to give back, because now you knew something.
Yes. And
how to do something that other people that were struggling didn't know.
Yeah.
And I look at it, it took me 3 years. It took me, when I first started in 2015 to 2018. And nobody should take that long. So I tried to contact I don't know, about August, September, I started writing of 2019. I started writing to This Naked Mind. Do you have any coach programs? Well, I started to get a bit discouraged. And then 2020, in January, I wrote them a letter and I got a note back from Scott Pinion,
Yes.
the coach. One thing led to another, and I did the interview, and he says, well, you could go into business being a coach. I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do it. But that's not really my interest. My interest is how do I teach other people to quit, and also teach my grandchildren and other future generations on exactly what this is and how to avoid it. And so I took the 2020 This Naked Mind coach, became a This Naked Mind certified coach in September of 2020. And I also have another certification in gray area drinking recovery, which is Jolene Park's program.
Cool.
And it's been wonderful. I mean, the alcohol-free part is obviously wonderful, but being in this community and being involved in trying to help others get away from this at a faster rate than 3 years has been just wonderful. I can't even tell you how good it is. And it's not about the money. It's about
I know
other people need to get done with this. It's not, no amount of alcohol is safe. Remember, 2018, August 2018, Lancet magazine, NPR, no amount of alcohol is safe for human consumption. Global study says. That was a 16-year study that involved, I don't even remember, 57 countries. And they came out with no amount of alcohol is safe.
no. It's a fact. It's a fact. Yeah.
Yeah. So when people tell you that, well, I only drink 2 or 3 glasses a week, or I only drink 1 or 2 a day. Well, statistically, in writing, 3 glasses of wine a week can increase a girl's chance of breast cancer by 15%.
Exactly.
And so
by 15.
when the alcohol company, really, Chris, what do you think? If the alcohol company says, drink responsibly, what does that mean?
Yeah,
What does that mean? Really?
It makes me furious when they say drink responsibly.
Yeah.
How can you drink responsibly poison?
Yeah. If 3 glasses a week increase your cancer chances by 15%, what's responsible? 1. And if 1 glass a week is responsible, why do they put 5 5-ounce glasses in a bottle? It's just, and there's been many other studies since. All right. I always go back to cigarettes. Okay, if we were to go back 100 years, 1921, everybody smoked, chewing tobacco. It was wide open because nobody knew what it would do.
Yes.
So if almost, it was sort of a rite of passage, smoking or chewing tobacco. Then 1965 comes along, and the Cigarette Act of 1965 says cigarette smoking may be hazardous to your health. All right, so then it takes off, and it's become a lot more graphic and a lot more science and everything. And so back in 1964, when this all started, about 42% of America smoked. Now 15% smoke. So it's sort of like a 70% decrease in smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or was it 62% down to 15%? It was a phenomenal decrease. Why? Because the science was out.
Of course.
All right, so we've been drinking alcohol for 10 or 11,000 years, recorded. It wasn't until 1988 that they said it's a class 1 carcinogen in the same class as benzene and asbestos. It's directly tied to 7 different kinds of cancer. But the alcohol companies aren't going to let you know that.
Yeah. The industry is the same in Germany. They are so big. They have such a big influence still, and they make so much money.
And even the government.
The government, of course.
They tax everything. They make so much money on taxes. from alcohol
From
sales.
alcohol, yeah.
And back in 1920, the other reason I draw 1921 into it, because 1921 in the United States was prohibition. And they learned that when they banned it, well, organized crime trying to make it bootleg it took right off. And the other thing is the government lost all of the revenue and taxes from it. So what did they do? They re-legalized the drug. And now everybody looks at it as, oh, it's got to be safe. It's over the counter. You can just walk right in and buy it.
But in the States, you have to go to special liquor stores. In Germany, you can buy alcohol 24/7 at the gasoline station. Imagine, you can drive your car to the gasoline station and buy vodka and gin. Do you think this is normal? This helps? No?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
And then, people, another thing I bring up when I talk to people, I say, okay, for the last year and a half, 19 months, 20 months, up until recently, you couldn't fly anywhere. You couldn't go out to eat. You couldn't go get a haircut. You couldn't go to the gym. But alcohol is essential. So the liquor stores and all of these places that sell alcohol, that was essential. You can't get a haircut, but you can drink. And then they have these online virtual drinking, where
meetings, no? Yeah.
Meetings where they're drinking on a Zoom call.
Yes.
Really? Okay. COVID has completely changed the world. In the last 19 or 20 months, about 5 million people, or about 3 million people the first year. COVID killed 3 million people. Alcohol kills over 3 million people every year. Mm-hmm. But it's a socially accepted
drug
consequence of a socially accepted drug.
Yeah. It's the only drug you have to explain why you're not taking it.
Exactly. It's so crazy. It makes no sense. In fact, I was at a camp and there were 11 of us, one 14-year-old and 10 adults. And so they were going to have this, everybody got together. We're going to have this celebration shot. So they whip out this bottle and this one guy, Dan, pours 9 shots and he turns to me and he knows that I had drank for three years. He says, well, you're going to celebrate. He says, you can have one, right? I said, no, I'm not going to drink that. He says, well, what if I pour it for you? I says, well, I'll walk over to one of you guys will drink it or I'll walk over the door and throw it out in the yard. And he says, okay, so I didn't drink it. About a half an hour later, one of the guys came up and he says, well, I'm really proud of you that you could resist celebrating with us. I said, resist what?
Resist?
Said, Danny took a can of jet fuel and poured 9 shots. And you guys all drank the same thing that's in your gas tank. Mm-hmm. And I'm missing out. I said, what don't you guys get? And he walked away shaking his head. He couldn't believe that was my outlook. Yeah. But what I was saying with COVID, 60% alcohol or greater concentration is what they want in your hand sanitizers and everything to kill COVID, because it's the equivalent of thermonuclear war on a cellular level. What are we made of? Cells. So why would you use alcohol in a higher concentration to kill a terrible disease that's rampant all over the world, but it's safe for you to drink if you dilute it? It doesn't make any sense either. So hopefully we can spread this word faster than the cigarette industry was killed. Because alcohol, in my opinion, is the next cigarette.
Yes.
Eventually, the world will catch on to what it's doing. But, it's only been 34 years since they declared it a class 1 carcinogen after 10,000 years. Well, it took a while for cigarettes to go away. But what do you see about cigarettes now? Oh, that would be nothing. There's no advertising. There's no magazines, there's no billboards, there's no television or radio magazine or articles about it or, advertising. But alcohol's wide open. They're telling you it's the best thing that you could do. Everybody's supposed to feel good, but that's not really it. Everybody's supposed to feel everything. They're not supposed to feel good. This is all lies that they're telling us. which is why we do what we do. We got to get rid of this.
I think it takes a little bit more time, but we are in this, no? I think we're in this movement, sobriety movement. It arrived also to Germany. Maybe in the States, it started already, let's say, 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. At what time, when did it start in the United States?
I want to say, I don't remember when Alan Carr's book came out. I really don't.
I read it. I bought it. It was in 2013. 2013, I think I bought this.
Right. Craig Beck's book, Alcohol Lied to Me, came out somewhere around 2000, between 2009 and 2011.
Yeah.
So in fact, Annie actually mentions Craig Beck's outlook on wine and, the connoisseurs drinking wine about it all being BS in her book, In This Naked Mind. So Craig Beck's book came out first, but I only think that we're 8 or 10 years into the alcohol-free movement. That's really when it's starting to take off. And I just hope that we keep gaining momentum. The biggest thing that I think we should be doing is asking, well, in Germany, your government, or community representatives that represent all of the people to your government, and for us, the states, the senators and representatives, finding out how they're voting on this advertising and alcohol of it, because that's where you got to get it. You have to start working at the government level, in the senates and the congressmen, to get them to stop this advertising and stop this. When you look at a new drug that hits the market, 10 seconds of the drug of the ad will be on what the medication does, and the other 20 seconds about the side effects. All right, what would happen if alcohol came out now? You don't think
it would be a classic drug, a classic drug, if it was invented today.
If it was just invented now, I don't think it would get the free ride that it gets.
No.
Right now, drink responsibly. That's all they have. They don't have to put all of the other bad stuff down, because that's what the legislatures have passed.
Jim, what about the bottles in the United States, for example, for whiskey or for wine? Do they have a sign like it's dangerous or poison or drink?
The only thing they do is they put on there that it can cause birth defects in pregnant women.
Okay, we don't have this. We have nothing.
Back in 1980, I want to say 88 or 89 or 90 or whatever, in Canada, they actually tried to put some of the warnings of what alcohol does after they discovered that it was a carcinogen, but the alcohol companies managed to snuff that out. And it hasn't. I haven't really looked into it, but I don't think that it's resurfaced since. Because the alcohol companies are making so much money, I'm sure that, they're paying, or they're probably contributing to a lot of the government elections, the elections for all of these officials. And so, of course, they're going to do them. I think they're doing them a favor by looking the other way, but I can't prove that. And I think it's happening in your country, and I'm sure it's happening in England and Australia. It's happening all over the world. The alcohol companies are making so much money.
Of course, we have advertisement everywhere still. Yeah. We have in television, we have in newspapers, in magazines, everywhere. I don't know in the States.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. It is.
Sure? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Still.
Some of the biggest ads are on sporting events.
Oh yeah, sports, football, and beer is together.
Yeah. What about, your football? Is alcohol all over the place, that people are supposed to be enjoying the alcohol while they're watching all these sporting events?
Yeah. It's the same. Yeah. It's combined. It's all close together, football and beer. Yeah.
I ride, well, I haven't ridden in the last couple because of COVID, but I ride in a 5 boroughs bike ride. It's a 42-mile ride that goes through all 5 boroughs of New York City. So after you ride 42 miles on a bicycle and you finally get to Staten Island after going over the Verrazano Bridge,
Yes.
and you pull over, and what's the first thing they give you because it's part
A
of
beer.
your ticket? A beer.
In Germany,
Really? You just did all of this exercise
Yes.
and you're going to kill it with alcohol.
Yeah.
But when I first started doing it, I saw it as such a benefit. It was such a great idea. In fact, all right, as I said, I've been a pharmacist for 45 years. And so through all of the time that I considered myself a normal drinker, well, anybody that I didn't know of as being an alcoholic was a normal drinker. So if they came into my pharmacy and they were getting a medication and they would ask me, all right, could I drink or could I not drink? And I would tell them if they could or how much they could. But Chris, I had a couple of times where I gave patients prescriptions and I told them this seriously interacts with alcohol. You cannot drink if you're on this medication, which is the story I told my friends when we went away. I'm on a medication that I can't drink.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, I have had people actively hand me back the prescription for the antibiotic and say, that's okay. I'm going to be all right. I'm not going to stop drinking just to take this medication. Whatever I have will heal. But, in my early career, everybody drank and 80% of America still drinks. And I'm sure 80% of the world is still drinking. And so it was one of the most common questions that I was asked. Can I drink with this medication? Now, my advice would be completely different than it was in my early pharmacy career.
Of course.
Because I know that it doesn't matter whether you're on a medication or not, no amount of alcohol is safe. So of course the answer is going to be no.
But when you were drinking, Jim, did you know that it was
Absolutely not.
poison? Well,
no,
maybe you knew,
not.
but you didn't want it to know. No?
Well, everybody, even today in today's society, everybody knows that it's not good for them.
Yeah.
But they don't know the extent that it's not good for them.
Exactly.
They don't know that. Oh, yeah, it's bad. But if I limit it, I'm going to be okay. They don't know that that's not true now.
Yeah.
That they haven't found that there's any safe amount. Whereas, before 1988, when they declared it a carcinogen, and even after that, they still said, well, yeah, you can drink a certain amount. It's okay.
Yeah. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you go to the doctor in Germany, what does the doctor or the nurse practitioner ask you when they ask you how much you drink? Most of us have this pat answer. Oh, I have 1 drink or 2 drinks a day.
No, or even 2 to 3. I always said 2 to 3 a week.
Yeah. Okay. So we already know that 3 drinks a week can increase your chance of cancer. So there isn't any safe amount. But what if and most people lie by as much as
they
half
lie. Of
more,
course they lie.
Of what they really drink. But what about if they asked you a really legitimate question like, when was the last time you took a significant vacation from alcohol, like a month or more? How about like a dry January or an alcohol experiment?
Good
or
idea.
Sober or a dry July or a sober October. If they asked, when was the last time someone took a serious break from alcohol? Everybody that went to the doctor's story would be different, because now they can't cut their drinking in half. They have to be honest. Oh, I've never done that. I haven't taken a month off in 20 years, or I haven't taken a month off in my case in 40 years. But they don't ask that question. But they should.
But they don't.
Especially in the light of the fact that 3 glasses of wine a week can do serious damage. There's another thing that, as I said earlier, that cardiac or heart, there's another a binge drinking thing. 5 drinks for a man in 2 hours or 4 drinks for a woman in 2 hours can increase your chances of dying of a stroke by 39%. I'm not saying
What is a stroke,
a
Jim?
stroke, a cardiovascular accident,
Okay.
a heart attack, or a stroke causing a brain bleed because of the increase in blood pressure, because of the increase in your heart rate that alcohol causes. So these are statistics that nobody knows. If you were to go and ask 10 of your friends, do you know that alcohol is known to cause 7 different types of cancer? I guarantee their answer is no. If you would ask them, do you know that in 1988 they declared it a class 1 carcinogen? Causes cancer. It's the same as asbestos and benzene. I guarantee their answer is no.
Yeah.
Because they don't get that education. The alcohol company's never going to tell you. The government doesn't care. The only way that you're going to get it is into the healthcare industry, and you have to change what they're asking, and that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But
exactly, I'm exactly with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I one of my best friends, she had breast cancer, and she survived. And then she came to visit me, and she knew that I stopped drinking. And then she said, "Oh, is it okay if I drink a beer in front?" Yeah, I said, "Sure, of course." And then I was thinking of, oh, shall I say something? And then I said, maybe you don't know, but the risk, I mean, you survived, but maybe you don't know that you have a risk drinking alcohol of breast cancer, that you have more risk, no? And I think she didn't know, but then 1 month later, she told me that she also stopped drinking, that she quitted alcohol. Yeah. I was really happy, but actually she didn't know. She didn't know it. No.
Huh? I didn't know either. When my cousin, who I'm visiting, I mean, obviously,
yes.
if we've been friends for obviously our whole lives. We got talking about his brother, who he passed away 2.5 years ago. He smoked, but he stopped smoking years ago. But he still drank all the time. And when you think of colorectal cancer being one of the cancers that alcohol is responsible for, that could have been very well what caused his. Okay, their father, my uncle, he passed away at 42 years old of colorectal cancer. And that was all the way back in the 70s, in the mid 70s. Well, since nobody knew that it caused cancer, that's not what caused it. That's not the case. Nobody knew cigarettes caused cancer in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, but how many people did it really cause it for? So now that we have this new education, and now that we have all of this new scientific evidence and all of these scientific studies, William Porter said, I don't know, a month or two ago on one of his podcasts, he says he challenges anybody to give him an article with real references that says that alcohol is good for you or alcohol is safe. He says, because there is none. He says there are no studies that say that will conclude that it's safe. No. And if you look at like that, a glass of red wine a day is good for you. That was actually taken out of, that was a line in an article, but further down in that article, the doctor that did that research said, however, the possibility of cancer and other health related issues makes that the benefit null. It's, so, but the alcohol company grabbed that one line. Yes. Oh, a glass of wine is good for you. Yeah. Well, yes, and a glass of wine is 5 ounces. Yeah. It's not 8 or 10 or half a bottle. You don't get 2 glasses out of 3 glasses out of a bottle, which is the way I poured it. But then, so, even the alcohol company saying a glass of red wine is good for you, or they'll give you the antioxidant of resveratrol. Well, it's got resveratrol in it. Well, so does peanut butter. So does red grape juice without the alcohol. There are so many things that are high in resveratrol, which is an antioxidant that is a benefit, that you don't have to get it from an alcoholic beverage. It says,
Yeah.
but they won't tell you that part. And they say, a small amount of alcohol is good for you, but that's not the case.
It's not true. It's a
it's
lie. It's a lie.
not true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's I think this part with the glass of red wine is like a myth all over the world, no? Spread all over the world that one glass of red wine, it's
but it's so yeah. So what I would like to see, well, obviously, I would like to see this alcohol-free movement
yes,
growing, and I would like to not, I want to go after all of the people that we call in the gray area, where they're not teetotalers that drink one drink a year, but they're also not drinking so much that their lives are seriously affected.
Mm-hmm.
The people that think that one or two is okay, or drinking socially is okay, and the ones that are passing it on to the next generations, those are the ones we really have to go after, because they think, like I did when I was young, that because I don't fit the description of an alcoholic, like the park bench guy or the bag lady that is homeless because that's where they ended up. You don't see any of that on alcohol commercials. They show you everybody's having a great time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what I want to do is I want to see what alcohol actually is taught to the new generations. This is the new science. And I'm sure in Germany, they teach how bad cigarettes and tobacco is. Well, we need to teach how bad alcohol is, regardless of whether or not it's over the counter or you can buy it anywhere. They have to understand that just because you can buy it anywhere doesn't mean that it's safe. And that's really where I would like to go with it. It's more important to educate the people that aren't looking for us than the ones that are struggling and are.
Of course. Did you talk already to the teachers and to the kids in school? Are you already in
the
certain
problem
programs?
that I'm running into is when I first started to do this was at the beginning of COVID.
Okay.
And I am trying to work with them, but they don't have any after school assemblies. They don't have any, parent assemblies or conferences. So you can't get to them because, they're just not having that kind of open extracurricular meetings. It's starting to open up, so we'll see where we get with it. But I ran into a wall like you wouldn't believe. I mean, even my daughter is in the process of homeschooling my three granddaughters for their second year, because one of them has got asthma, and asthma is a problem with COVID. It affects the lungs a lot. And so there's so many people that just don't go to these extra places where I would be able to talk about it. Yeah, so now I'm trying a different approach, but we'll see where I get with that. I'm going to try to do this a podcast, or a little a little TED talk, so to speak.
But I think it's a very good idea. Even when the daughter of my partner, she's 10, when she's coming, she's seeing now that we are drinking water or tea. There's no alcohol in our house, and I think also the younger people, they will realize that there are adults who don't drink alcohol, no? So, and I think in school, I think that's changing. They must change, no?
They must. I mean, there's been a lot of problems with funding the DARE program, which is the Drug Awareness Resistance Education, is what the DARE stands for. And they spend more time with drugs, like heroin and cocaine and crack.
Yes.
Well, all of the prescription and illegal drugs together don't kill half as many people as alcohol kills every year.
Yeah, I know.
And so they're concentrating on something that they should really be concentrated on alcohol.
On
If
alcohol.
if alcohol kills over 3 million people a year, yet COVID can shut the whole world down when it killed 3 million people. Well, okay.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yes.
It is. Yeah.
That it kills that many people every year.
Yeah.
Every year. And in the United States, I think it's 28 people a day are killed in alcohol-related car accidents.
Yes, I know.
But, that's not the big push. The big push is other drugs. But we have to start to focus more on where the real big problem is. If that's what's caused, that's the number one, like people 15 to 59 years old, the number one preventable cause of premature death is alcohol related.
Yeah.
And they ignore it. They're not teaching to it. So.
But we started already, Jim. We started the movement. We started to do something. Yeah. And even if it's very small percentage, also in Germany, we have a very nice and lovely sober tribe. And we try to spread the movement also, like coaches, like you. We meet now in London, no? And in January. So I think there will be a big group of sober people.
I am excited to go to that in the beginning of January.
Yes.
There'll be people in the sober community from all over the world. It should be spectacular.
I'm really proud that I met you, and I think we're changing something. It takes a little bit time.
It's going to take a while to get the traction to really make a change, but it's going to be slow, but we're going to get there.
Yeah. On every flight when I'm working, I talk to my colleagues, and there's always somebody asking for my card and listening to my story. So slowly, but I'm spreading the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we do.
I think it's great. And
I think it's so great.
That's where we have to go with it, is we have to break this chain. We have to stop this false advertising, this spreading of basically lies about alcohol by the alcohol companies and governments. We have to stop that.
It's a big lie. It's a big lie. And it's a drug. It's poison. And it's an addictive substance.
Yep, it absolutely is. I mean, when you look at the most addictive drugs, you have heroin, cocaine, crack, nicotine, and alcohol. Well, alcohol kills more than all of the other ones put together. Yeah. But those are still the big five. Now, granted, heroin or opiates are the most addictive, but they're not the most widely used. We have to keep gaining traction in this sober movement. Get rid of the big one, alcohol.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for
thank you for all your explanations and your great knowledge.
And really, thank you so much for sending me the message. Do I want to come on? Yes, I
yes.
I'm
really happy that
this is a passion.
Mine too.
To get our children and grandchildren educated to what was not available to us. Exactly. Just like when I was a child and they were educating me on what tobacco did, where my fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers didn't have that education on the damage it is. We have this education now on alcohol. Yeah. We have to keep teaching it. We do.
Thank you so much, Jim, for being my guest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Big kisses to Florida. And
I'll see you in January.
Yeah, Ooh. See you in January on my birthday. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much for tuning in and listening to my Love Sober podcast. I hope I could inspire, motivate, or support you a bit. My mission is to show you with enthusiasm and love that life without alcohol is so beautiful and that changes are possible. I stopped drinking at the age of 56 and started a podcast at the age of 57. So where do you wait for? Start now. Everything is possible, no matter at what age. If you like to have support or just a chat, have a look on my website lovesober.de or send me an email to chris@lovesober.de. And if you like to be my guest, please write me an email. I also invite you to be part of my private Love Sober Facebook community with people from all over the world. You can find the links in the show notes. If this was kind of fun to you, I invite you to hit subscribe and share this with your friends and family. I would be grateful if you would take a moment to rate and review this podcast, so together we could reach more people who are looking for an alcohol-free life. Thank you so much for being my guest, and I can't wait to see you next Sunday. Bye bye.